What's up, everybody? Jacob Barnhill with the Barnhill team at eXp Realty. Today, I have a very special guest. We are actually not going to talk about, well, we are going to talk about real estate a little bit, but that's not the point of today's interview. I have a very special guest, a very special friend. I had the opportunity to meet Derek Yanford when I went on a trip to New York City, and he took us to a fabulous Italian restaurant that was amazing. And I'm already introing him way too much. I want Derek to tell us. Derek, tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself. I'm so excited because this is a special topic that I'm really passionate about. And I'm really excited to really dive into your story. So take it from here, man. Give us a little backstory on yourself.
Cool. Thank you, Jacob, for having me. Yeah, I'm a former performing artist. I started my career early at the age of 15. I moved to New York City and studied at NYU. From there, I performed with a lot of different dance companies and traveled the world. And then later in life, I had kind of changed careers a couple times. I became a real estate agent. But the thing that I've turned my attention to most recently is more in the world of meditation and coaching after going to India in 2019 and studying for 3.5 months, and then starting my center called Your Best Self Meditation, and now getting into the coaching space. As a dance educator, what I think I realize is I really do love and enjoy supporting people and helping people become better versions of themselves. Mm-hmm. So I continue to do that in the dance space, but now I do it from a place that is a little less demanding on the body and a little bit more accessible, and that the world is what it is today, that I can reach and work with people from anywhere in the world at any time. So it's really an exciting time to be alive and to be doing what I'm doing.
Awesome. So Derek and I originally met through a network of real estate agents, and Derek put a lot of time and effort into his craft at that time of being a real estate agent. And Derek, you're actually a big part of I was just telling you before we hopped on here how important stories are, and we're going to talk about your story, but you are actually part of the stories that I share with my trainees, my new real estate agents, our partner agents, and growing their business, because you took the time and the effort. You showed up for script practice. We practiced dialogues on real estate training when we were both building our businesses a few years ago when we were kind of getting started. And Derek showed up every day, man. I tell people how important that is to have a great script partner. You were my number one, dude. I never had anybody that went that long, that showed up on time. It was 7:30 a.m. every morning. And we would just dive right into it, and we'd say, hey, how's it going? We didn't even like any pleasantries. We just practice like it was real world. So Derek is definitely one of those people that will pound and practice on that craft of whatever he's doing. I know that from personal experience, and that's one of the reasons I got him on here to talk about that. So I wanted you to know that you're part of the story that I teach these guys of. You want to find a script partner like Derek. You're going to show up every day, right? So I love that, man.
Thank you.
So tell me about, you've had this interest in, and I can relate to that. And that's why I'm coaching more with my guys now, where I want to help people. It's a mental game always, right? It's a mental game. I always find that I have to start with the mental game first with a lot of agents, or we're trying to help them do something they don't want to do. So I relate to that. I consider that very important stuff. So talk to me about your goals when you became a real estate agent. What was that goal? What was that life you were trying to move yourself towards at that time? What were you building?
So interestingly, before that entered the picture, what I thought my life was going to be like, I was turning 40 and I had plans to buy a friend's studio. And we were in that process for quite a few years. And as we approached that time, she kind of had a change of heart, and she needed to do and make different decisions. And so it kind of felt a little bit like, well, what am I going to do now? But in that process, I was going to be moving to another part of the country, and I was looking at real estate. And as I got into that field, I actually met a real estate agent that I went to school with. She was a dancer, and she had a dance company for 20 years. And I was like, what are you doing in real estate? She's like, oh my God, I love it. And so that kind of like had planted the seed a little bit about maybe I should, now that I'm not going to be a studio owner, And I actually was looking for something that me and my partner at the time could do together. I was like, maybe real estate is the thing, you know? And so I just kind of opened my mind a little bit and went
Mhm.
to the training. My partner actually became an agent before me. So he had some experience and then I became one. So I kind of felt like, okay, we're going to be like these powerful New York City real estate agents. And that worked for a bit. It was satisfying to some extent in that I was accomplishing this thing. I didn't think that I would ever do it. It was very different from what I was used to from the performing arts world to having like this corporate job. But at the same time, there were things about it that it didn't light me up like
Mhm.
other things that I had done before in the past. And I recognized what is the thing that, you know, somebody had said this to me. Like if you were a real estate agent and let's say on your last day, you literally walked into a house, you said, hey, this is the home, and boom, you dropped dead. Is that how you want to go out? And I was like, no. So I wanted to like see, could I have a real estate career and be doing something that I'm as passionate as, like with dance? And meditation kind of had found its way into the mix at that time. And I had this really incredible experience that, like dance, I was like, ooh, I need to share this with other people. And it had really changed and informed the way that I was looking at the world very differently. And that, you know, one thing kind of led to another. And at its core, it was about support. And I think living in New York City in a place with so many people,
Yeah.
what you don't recognize is that you can get very caught up and swept up into that environment, which is
Yeah.
great and energetic and amazing, but you can also lose yourself a bit. And I had to like dial it back and figure out what is it that I really want
Yeah.
now and get some clarity. And that's what the meditation kind of brought to me, was like, oh, okay, maybe you can be lit up every day by supporting people in other ways that are not in terms of buying or selling a home.
Absolutely, man. So I want to break down and unpack some of that a little bit more, but I have a little story that I want to share with, and just so people can relate. And to your point with New York, we have new dog in our house, and we were watching The Dog Whisperer. If you've ever
Mhm.
watched The Dog Whisperer, and he went to New York, and he said he finds that a lot of animals, the dogs that he has to work with that have the biggest problems, are in bigger cities. And he told us why, and it relates to your point of how this hustle bustle, this go 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 mentality, and that speed of things, and it matters, and even for the dogs. So I just wanted to point that out. We just watched that, I think, like last night or the night before, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what the Dog Whisperer was saying. So, and you don't actually live in New York anymore. You live in Florida.
Yeah, so after I went to India and did my training, and a little bit before that too, the city and being in the city became a little less charming. There were
Mhm.
things about it that I started to notice that were part of my everyday practice that were okay, that I was like, this actually doesn't feel relevant anymore, to kind of have this mask and to kind of ignore people and to have this shield and have your defenses up at all times. Not to mention just the production of getting groceries or all these other things. I started to crave nature and beauty and silence and warmth and all these things. And there was like, well, why can't I have that? I most certainly can. And then I took the steps to do that and I ended up moving to Florida right at the beginning of the pandemic. So I don't
Yeah,
think there are any coincidences. My life and all of that change that happened at a really amazing time for me.
that's cool, man. All right, so I want to back it up just a little bit. So let's
Mhm.
go. You said you had this experience that you wanted to share with people. Did you do any meditation before when you were when you had that experience with really just try to do, where it transitioned your life? Was there meditation before?
I had meditated once before,
Okay.
and it was with a friend of mine, and it was before a performance. I was dancing with this company called Battleworks, and we had a show in Boston. And really great friend of mine, Sam Roberts, who I loved, I would notice that he would meditate quite a bit. Great performer. So I wanted in on that. We did a little bit of breath work, and for me, it actually made me a little bit more anxious than I wanted to. So I kind of had paused because I'm kind of an anxious performer already. And it wasn't until I started teaching ballet at Connecticut College and I had this great package where I just wanted to like kind of upgrade my life that I revisited meditation.
Okay.
And this time it was a 4-day course. And the first day I was like, something very different is happening. And by the 4th day, the last day of graduation, I was like, this is profound and profoundly different and life-changing in a very short amount of time, that like a dancer, I was like, okay, I know at some point I'm going to be teaching other people how to do this. And that's kind of what led me to the path that I'm on.
You know, I kind of get goosebumps just thinking about that, because I see where I think I've landed in what I want to do now through what you just shared. Because I can remember times as a kid, I was a military brat, as a military kid, and we grew up in places like Germany. I knew what silence was, right? I actually remember a story because I had lived in Germany as a kid, and I had one of my Air Force coworkers, right? One of my battle buddies, and we were late nights at the bars. We were walking home in this little village to go to the taxi stand to go back to the hotel and get our crew rest and all that stuff. And he was from Chicago.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm scared someone's going to like jump out in one of the things, right? And we're walking through this dark street. It's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, normal stuff, right? For our military guys having a good time on the town. And it's just this little town. And I just stopped him. I put my hand on his chest. I'm like, stop right here, dude. I was like, just listen. And it was quiet, nothing going on. I was like, there's no one here. Like, that stuff doesn't happen here like that. You know what I mean? And he cried. He was drinking. He's a great guy. He'll like call me out. I'm not gonna call him out. But and you know, it just kind of brought him to tears. But I can remember as a kid, I knew what silence was, and I think I see a lot of that in people, where we just got to do some mental work a lot of times. It also reminds me, when you share that story, I've heard of these people going on these like no phone sabbaticals. You know, they go on these vacations where they have to put their phone in the drawer and turn off, and that's like this profound experience. And I think people forget that. So now I understand the experience that you had. So what held you from this 4-day course that you had, and then you're going to India, right? What happened? Was it that profound? Was there other steps, other things that happened?
It took about 8 years from the time I learned to the time I began the process of going to this school. And the thing about it, it had always been there. It had always been like in the back of my mind, but I was like, how can I make this happen? Because it really meant going to India, a country I had never been to before, for 3.5 months, which meant no working. How was I going to afford that? It was, you know, there was a lot of money involved in all of these things. And what happened was I went to a retreat where my teacher was. It was the last one that he was going to hold in the United States. And from that experience, what happened was he kind of had planted the seeds. It's like, anybody here interested in being a teacher? And I had been. So I just raised my hand because I was like, there's no harm in raising my hand. And he was like, great. So you can use this weekend as one of the prerequisites. And I was like, what is one of the prerequisites? And so that began a process of all these things that I had to do. I had to apply. I had to go through certain modules. I had to go through certain weekends. And the best advice that I got was, take it as it comes. And as it comes, take it. Kind of pointing to the idea that in this process, trusting the process, what will happen is the path will appear in front of you. It might not be clear as you're doing it, but as you stay committed, you'll see that it will just kind of happen. And so putting my trust in that is exactly how it happened. And like 7 months later, I found myself there in India. Everything had been paid. Everything was going to be completely fine. And, you know, I think what's really interesting about that experience is that is now the blueprint for which I use for everything. The move to New York, how was I going to do that? I lived in New York City for 25 years. Same kind of thing. Take it as it comes. And as it comes, take it.
That's so good, dude. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this video because I think I can get more just re-listening to this. It's so good, man. I love that. I'm gonna make that my next quote for tomorrow. I do a quote every day, so that's good, man. I love this. I don't even know where to go now. You just like put me in a place where it's just like, I get it, man. I get it. I know how hard it is sometimes for people when you got to make these changes. So, break down a little bit. Like, what was your mentality going to? You share with me like, oh, we were worrying about finances and all that, and you were just taking things as they come.
Mhm.
And was there anything that you were going in with, you wanted to work on? Did you like, I'm gonna fix this?
Yeah,
Anything like that?
great question. So, what meditation and the practice of it consistently was revealing to me was this idea of there is inside of me an authentic, genuine version that doesn't always come to the forefront for a myriad of reasons. One, being a dance educator or a choreographer stepping into a studio, you have to put on a persona. I'm the educator, I'm leading, I have to do X, Y, and Z. As a
Mhm.
real estate agent, same thing. I'm leading people to find their homes, whatever it might be. So, oftentimes in leadership type roles, you put on this facade, which isn't a bad thing. What I just noticed is that when I was maybe around people, I also felt like, is this who I really am? Or is this a version of me that's wanting to please others?
Mm.
And so meditation in that silence, in that quietude was saying, you can be your authentic, most genuine version of yourself. And there's no reason not to. You're just out of practice. You're not sure. So I went there with this understanding or this idea of trying to reclaim that, trying to figure out what that was. And now I I locked my computer and my cell phone into the safe for about the first 6 weeks of the program. And I let everybody in my community know I'm not going to be reachable. And the thing about that, and here I'm in this ashram in the middle of India, the thing about it is you and I both were born in a time where there was no cell phone, there was no internet. And I
Yep.
believe that the way that we navigated and saw life was very different because we were by default unreachable. Now that we can be reached at any moment and we can communicate with anybody anytime that we want, what ends
Yeah.
up happening, what we don't understand is that this can be very triggering to the nervous system. And
Mhm.
so you can get caught up into, without knowing it, into this kind of crisis mode, fight or flight, always on. And if the
Yep.
body and the mind never have the opportunity to rest and decompress and reflect, this can be the beginning of a lot of different problems. And so, what I wanted to really do was after the training, not only teach people how to meditate, but also go, okay, how can, as a leader, in every container, in every space that I am, allow the full, authentic version of Derek to show up unapologetically, knowing that there is a place and space for me. And yes, I can still be a leader. And yes, I can still, support people in certain ways, but I don't have to leave part of myself out of the room. The whole 100% self can come in and is welcome and invited. And I don't know that I made that connection, especially in New York. In New York, when you get on the subway, you are a particular person.
Right.
When you walk into a store, when you walk into a restaurant, when you're on the street, you put on, especially because you understand that the environment can change very quickly.
Yeah.
There could be something that happens that you really have to be, ready for. And that constant readiness is
Yeah.
dulling your ability to actually go, what's going on right now with me in this moment? And so I knew that my life had done enough of that and to get in touch with who I really am. That, you were talking about the silence in Germany with your
Yeah.
friend. So I
Yeah.
believe that silence is always there. And inside of it, there is this message about the belief of who you really are. However, if your environment, if your work habits, if your day is filled with noise, you just simply can't hear it. And now
Yeah.
you start to believe all the extraneous things that are
Yeah.
going. And so, what I found is that the me who lives quietly with my eyes closed can actually be presented in the outside world with my eyes open. And it's a process. And my life has changed for the better because I'm able to do that. I don't feel burdened in the
Yeah.
way that I used to from being like this other person trying to people please. And so it's been like a 180 for me.
So I want to get into the course, and I know you have something special that you're getting ready to do that I think would provide a lot of value for people that are maybe looking for that decompress button, or they're looking for that. I'm going to go vulnerable a little bit. I'm going to get a little philosophical. Can we do that?
Of
I
course.
want to give my take on it because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I've always been a believer that people will create their own existence. They're going to put, good or bad, they're gonna put in the box whatever they create in their mind, good or bad. But if they're not conscious to it, it could be good because that's natural. That just might be your combination of your past experiences and your current environment, right? And your biological makeup and your genes, right? It's a combo of all those things. I'm a person, I don't believe that you are who you were 5 years ago. 10 years ago, you're not the same person. I'd have been a different person if I wouldn't have been in the military, didn't grow up. I could have been the same guy, but a different parents, different environment, would have been completely different. But I think that there's an element of finding who you are in the moment. Like, I don't have to be a real estate agent if I don't want to. You didn't have to. You chose not to. But in that moment, you could try to find the happiness in what you're doing and try to find that level zone of finding happiness with what you're doing, right? So
Absolutely.
those are just my thoughts, and I don't know, does that pull anything? I feel like there's more to this, what you have. I want to know your thoughts on what I just said, like what's coming to mind on what you teach and what you believe.
Sure. So we want to be cognizant of two different realms that exist. The one that we're talking about is the realm of the relative. Up, down, left, right, here, there, hot, cold, the physical, mind, and body, all of the things that we experience as human beings.
Right.
That's happening. But there's another realm. And we believe that this realm gives way to everything that is in existence. And this is called the unmanifest or pure consciousness, or what scientists would call the unified field. Now, in your lived experience as a human being, we have to understand that our bodies have evolved over time in a particular way. And so you're hardwired to avoid danger because you're mostly highly identified with this thing. You believe that you are the body. And so things that are benevolent in your environment are nothing to really consider. It's the threats, the things that are dangerous, the things that might compromise or jeopardize your body, you have to be aware of. Now, if you take your past, right, what your brain is doing to keep you safe is recording the events of times that your body and mind experience something traumatically, too much, too fast, fight or flight, right? And to prepare or protect or to conserve itself, it is going to use that information from the past as a way of creating a blueprint to avoid that in the future, which makes sense. The problem with this is that you are now being caught up with what happened and projecting that onto what will happen, and you're missing the very thing that is happening is the now. You are completely unaware of what's going on right now. And so meditation and certain other techniques, what they can elicit is what we call present moment awareness. So for example, you and I right now, because we're in the waking state, our eyes are open. There is part of our brain that is like a radar looking for a threat. That's if something were to happen right now, we need to be prepared. However, if I asked you to sit quietly with your back, supported, closing the eyes, and then just kind of bringing your awareness to your breath, those three things in and of itself would start to signal a very different experience. The body would go, wait, we don't need to be on the lookout? No. We're safe in this moment? Yes. And now with that, we're going to introduce this wonderful thing called a mantra that is something the mind's going to find very charming. And our awareness is going to move from this gross level, 100%, to something subtler and more subtler that's always been there, but you can't hear because you're so caught up in looking for the threat.
Right.
Now, the amazing thing that happens when all of these things line up is that the body starts to rest, but in a way that's very different from sleep. It's very dynamic. And so we switch from the fight or flight response to what's known as rest and digest, or stay and play. And in this state, the body starts to repair itself. And one of the biggest things that it's going to do is going to push out old, unwanted, calcified stress from the body. Yeah. Now, the thing is, if we don't remove that, your body and mind are so intelligent that if you have a lot of that in your system, it's going to make a choice. It's going to say, you know what? You're so stressed out. We're just going to keep you there, because it takes too much time and energy to go from that into something that's not that. Yeah. So you now are going to walk around like everything is a threat. So the simplest thing that you could have handled when you were less stressed now becomes this almost feeling like it's life or death. And being a person who lived in New York City for as long as I did, I can tell you, I see people who are stuck in that state. The difference is I have the awareness to understand, this activity, especially that might be pointed towards me, has nothing to do with me. They're so stressed out that this is the best solution that they can come up with to handle that. And thank goodness I'm not there. I have a system that allows me to unwind, de-excite, and then come back in the world and go, okay, you're actually safe. What's the most relevant thing for you to do now? And that's really it.
So I want to, and you've already shared part of that system. So you said there was 3 things. There was closing your eyes, sitting down, and then paying attention to your breath, right? Are those the 3 things?
Those are, yes.
And then there was the mantra that you add on top of that. So for anybody taking notes, I wanted to go back and look at that, because I was going to ask how can people just start today? And I would think that would probably be it, is just start with those things and find a quiet place, I'm sure. But is this what's the technique? Is this the only technique, and what's it called? And is there other techniques that you teach?
Okay, so if we weren't going to use the mantra, we're just going to place our awareness on the breath alone. That is a technique in and of itself that's known as witnessing. Now, if we're going to introduce the mantra, I would recommend that you get a teacher who's trained in that technique or that tradition. And those kinds of meditations are called auto-transcendent awareness, right? Or a being technique. And what it does is it interrupts the thought process of the mind to deliver a very different experience. But you need to know how to use the mantra in a particular way. You just can't pick one up on your own and create it and expect the same thing to happen. Gotcha. So there's a couple different techniques, but those are the 2 that are probably the witnessing. Like I said, just noticing, simply noticing the breath. If every person on the planet every day for a minute, 2, just simply sat comfortably, closed their eyes, and just notice what their breath was doing, I think a massive shift and change can happen. And for those who are doing that or want to take it a step further, there are other means of having a little bit more profound experience that, when we come back into the waking state, kind of changes the way you're perceiving your environment and how to behave, or in a more responsive way versus a reactive way.
I feel like I don't even want to say this live so someone doesn't steal the idea. Is anybody doing that, like a podcast? Because I feel like I'm almost getting that experience talking to you right now. And I was like, this is what Derek should do this, man. Get like a massive world movement doing meditation every day at this time.
So I co-host a podcast.
Do you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Go ahead. It's called the Vedic Conversation, because I'm trained in a particular technique called Vedic Meditation. And I host it with 2 of my colleagues. And what we do is we share stories that are related to how using this technique can kind of trigger different things and kind of lead you to having an altogether different experience. And we just call it Vedic because this is the lineage that it's drawn back to, a body of knowledge from India called the Vedas.
So how would someone find that podcast? Can you spell that?
Sure. Vedic is spelled VEDIC, the Vedic Conversation. It's available on Spotify, on iTunes, anywhere that you would listen to your podcasts. That's cool. We also have a YouTube channel as well. It's the Vedic Conversation. You can look us up on YouTube. So because we record them live videos like this and then take the audio portion and make it a podcast.
That's so cool, man. I've gotten so much out of this. I mean, just really kind of diving into your story and things that you shared. And I think that not even going through your course, I mean, just talking about this stuff, I can relate so much in so many different ways. And I know that people could find so much value. What's the name of the course? I know you have something special coming up really soon. What's the title?
Yeah, so my course is called Learn to Meditate, right? And it's a course that's done in 3 days. They're 90-minute sessions. You are given a mantra, but most importantly, you are given the directions of how to use it. So this is a little bit different than Vedic meditation, as I'm also certified in various different types. And so this is like a little condensed version where we can do it online together. And this is hosted on Eventbrite, and it's happening tomorrow is day 1. So there's still time to sign up.
So perfect. So, and if somebody wanted to sign up for that, they would just send email to you right here at the bottom. We got
Absolutely. You can reach out to me at derekyanford@gmail.com. The easiest way too is to go to Eventbrite. I don't know if that's a space that you've ever been to, but eventbrite.com. And if you type in my name, Derek Yanford, my courses will come up there as well.
Okay, perfect. What if I'm on the fence and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to do the meditation. Meditation's kind of weird. I'm not used to it. What would you say to someone like that and they're just not sure yet?
Great question. So for every person, my belief is when you're ready, the teacher will appear, and it will never happen any other way.
Yep. What was the mantra or the saying that you went to India with? You said,
take it as it comes.
Take it as it comes.
And as it comes, take it.
That's perfect, man. I got no other questions, dude. That wraps it up with a bow. I love it. It's good stuff, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Anything else you want to share with anyone before we sign off, man? This was great.
No, I honestly, thank you so much. It is my honor and my pleasure and to serve people masterfully and powerfully the best that I can. And I'm so grateful that I found something that allows me to do it on this scale. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been an absolute joy.
Yeah, my selfish reason for having you on was because 1, I knew you were a great person, and 2, I wanted to have this as, I try to provide value not only to my past clients and my friends and family, but also my agents. And I know what they go through building a business, and I've been the byproduct of a lot of the stress and things like that you talk about, and even coming from a quiet place or knowing what the quiet is or whatever you want to call it, and you still got wrapped up in all that. So I know I'm gonna have all my agents go watch this. This was my selfish reason for having you on, but I wanted to have you here too to get you out there more, man, because I think that what you're doing is awesome and I believe in it. I think starting with the mind is so important. I do this every day, but in a different way, not with meditation, but maybe I should.
Well, let's get you in, man.
This is great, dude. So thank you again. I really do appreciate it. And then let's connect soon. Let's do something else with this, man, with a bigger group.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm going to sign off. Everybody, stay savvy out there. Take action, build a business, but take some time to take it as it comes as well. So thanks, Derek. I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you. Thanks.